Are You Really Going to Eat That? Podcast episode 138. Hey there, I'm your host Wendy Hill and I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist and expert in female hormone health. I specialise in helping women gain confidence and understand their bodies, allowing them to shine. I'm a huge foodie and this podcast allows me to bring you an eclectic mixture of guests where food and health is our uniting passion. So today I bring you the lovely Amber Hawley. So Amber, welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to have you here today. I'd just like you, can you just give the listeners a little bit of a brief summary of who you are, what you do, and how you got to be where you are today?
Ooh, brief with my whole life journey. That's going to be tough. Well, I'm a licensed therapist by trade, and I have multiple businesses. I say I'm a ADHD fueled business owner. I have a group practice in Silicon Valley in California, and then I have 2 online coaching and consulting businesses where I do trainings and speaking and coaching. And I like to help entrepreneurs, whether that's individually or as couples, with the emotional side of business is what I like to say.
And so Amber, I want to ask you about, you coined a phrase and we connected over your shiny object syndrome. So tell the listeners what you would classify as shiny object syndrome, because I love this.
Yeah. And it's something, I work with a lot of people who have ADHD because a lot of business owners, or I say ADHD-ish tendencies, because frankly, modern entrepreneurship really leads all of us, or even modern living is leaving all of us feeling a little bit distracted, right? And so I think shiny object syndrome happens for everyone, like in all the population, but especially people who are a little prone to distraction. We really love chasing a squirrel, as I like to say. Shiny objects are those things that come into your life that are like tempting and look amazing, and it make you want to like leave the work that you are supposed to be doing, or that's important to you. When I say supposed to, I mean, because you've decided that's what I want to focus on. That's what I want to accomplish. And all of a sudden these things pop up, whether they're opportunities or software or, latest fads, new diets, whatever the thing is. And they kind of take our attention and take over and lead us away from the things that were important to us. As I started looking at that and seeing, like what's happening here? Because I do it too. Like I've always said the things that I have literally done every single thing that I often will talk about, where I'm like, why did I do that? Like in hindsight, when I reflect back, I'm like, it's almost like you could see it as self-sabotage. You can see it as like, look, I overwhelmed myself, or I lost momentum because I was splitting my focus. And so, like, why did I do that? Why did I, and for me, it was often like buying courses or, programs or whatever it was. Like, I just constantly love to do that. And so I was looking at it and I started realizing some trends I started to see where I think people are chasing shiny objects because there was some other unmet need happening. And as the more I went through that, it was like, oh yeah, I'm like, oh, there was this time I was trying to buy my way out of burnout, so I'm in this overwhelmed place. Or there's this time where, like, if you're feeling lonely and you're just feeling kind of isolated, you might be more apt to like collaborate with somebody where you're like, oh, this really isn't good timing, or you sign up for something or agree to volunteer with something. And you're like, ideally, this is not the best time. I'm really busy. You're feeling so lonely that you do that. And so you're chasing these shiny objects, right? And sometimes there's these times where it's like, oh, this is my one chance. And seems like an awesome opportunity. And sometimes they are. Sometimes it's really just a thing that derails us from like our bigger goal, our bigger mission, or what's most important to us, right? And so that I put it together with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he has that base level of, the physical, you have to have like shelter and food and clothing. And then it keeps going all the way up to self-actualization. And as I started breaking down like the patterns that I see with both clients and myself, it was like, oh, This one falls here. This is a self-esteem thing. This is this thing of feeling like, oh, am I good enough? And so then I chase these shiny objects to kind of like prove my worth. And ultimately, the reason it matters is because one, we do it a lot. We're not doing it intentionally. And that's my whole thing is you get to chase whatever shiny object you want. But if we do it intentionally, we're doing it going with our eyes open. And then it's like, we're going to have a much better experience. But if we're just doing it automatically, kind of like checking your email, like you're just in this habit of saying yes, or doing this or committing, there's, we're not being thoughtful about it. Right. And then it often leaves us feeling more isolated, more alone, more overwhelmed or burnt out, or whatever the thing is that you were trying to fill. It doesn't actually work.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of resonate with all of those. As you were saying them, I'm thinking, yeah, I've done all of those in my life where I've kind of, bought something, searched out something, or, where that wasn't really what I wanted. It was a plaster for an emotion that I was self-medicating, I suppose, if you like, in a way. It was kind of like, that'll make me feel better for 10 minutes, but it didn't actually take away whatever it is that's been making me feel bad. And do you find, with your clients that this whole being distracted is having a negative impact on their health and well-being?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the thing where if you're in that place where you're overcommitting or you're not being intentional with your decisions or your time, then what ends up happening, the thing that you probably hear all the time is like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to do that. And we know that I think we're at the point we all know that's crap. Like we know that it's not that we don't have the time, it's that it's not a priority. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. You get to choose your priorities. But if it was a priority, you can find the time for it, but it's really hard if you're overcommitted. And I think that's the thing where the more of these, shiny objects or commitments that we have, we're just a chronically overcommitted state. We're in a chronically overcommitted state. And especially if you're a woman and you have children and you have a business, I mean, even if you didn't have all of those things, but when you add them all on top of each other, and then you throw in invisible labor that women have, to deal with and kind of manage things, it's a lot to deal with. So of course you're like, oh, I don't have time to prepare a healthy meal, or, I have to stay up. I hear this a lot. Like, oh, I have to stay up till 1 a.m. to finish all these things and get them done. Otherwise the whole next day is going to be terrible. And then I can't sleep. And I wake up at 3 a.m. because, I'm in perimenopause and my hormones are out of whack, or I'm stressed out. And then I get up at 6, it's like this vicious cycle, right? So 100% I see that. I start with the schedule because you're right. And I think it's, I think it's called Parkinson's law. I always get it mixed up because there's so many P's, but it's the one that says work expands to fill the time allotted. And so if we say, I'm going to take 2 hours to do this task, it'll take 2 hours. If we say I have 8 hours to do this task, it'll take 8 hours. And like you said, the drain of energy of stressing about something and thinking about it, it's so much better if we just focus and do it. However, I am going to say, and I've read the book, Eat the Frog. And there are many times I think that's what we should do. And there are some times we have to understand our own like biorhythms and who we are and say like, I'm not a morning person. And if the thing isn't due that day, then I'm not going to do it first thing in the morning. So instead, like saying, okay, what type of task is it? There are certain types of tasks where like if I need my brain power, I'm going to do it in like early afternoon, because that's the time where my brain feels the most like focused and on, and like, it's caffeined up and Adderalled up and I'm chugging along, and it's so much easier to do it at that time. So sometimes you have to experiment with the time of day, but the key to that is, like you said, that if you're sitting there obsessing about it and thinking about it all morning, if you haven't given that time to something else, like you're taking care of something else instead, then you're just wasting your day. You might as well do it early, right? So I just say that for the people who are like, oh my gosh, the thought of doing my hardest thing first is so overwhelming that it keeps them from doing anything else all day. That's why I say sometimes be willing to look at like a different way of approaching it. But we all know that. We all know that sense of relief and satisfaction that comes from like, oh my gosh, like I just did that. almost always, it never takes as long as we think it will. And when we finish it, we're like, oh, I feel so free. And so that's part of the strategy. It sounds like your husband is doing it right. Like I say, have your one thing for the day. Now, sometimes you might have like 3 things. And I'm not talking about, if you see clients, you see your clients. If you have to return a phone call here or there. But if you have one thing, one big task you want to get done for the day, figure out what that is. That's the one thing, not this 20 items on your to-do list. And when you're done, be done. Allow yourself to be done with work. Now, if you feel the momentum and energy and you want to do something else, great. But don't make it the expectation that that's what should be done is 10 things, right? It's unrealistic.
And so just my quick fire round now. So I think I know the answer to this one, but movies or dancing?
Oh, those are my 2 favorite things in the world. I would say right now, dancing for sure. Lights up my heart.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. Always makes me smile. Are you a lark or a night owl?
A night owl.
Pizza or sushi?
Oh, sushi.
And summer or winter?
Oy, it depends where the winter is, because I had been living in California for 22 years. I'm now in Asheville. So I will take an Asheville winter because it's very mild. I'm not a heat girl. I don't like the heat. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I like fall. See, you didn't give me my answer. I want fall. Okay. Can I choose fall?
Me? Yeah, I am as well, actually. It's funny that it's actually next time I go watch. Yeah, I am actually. I love autumn autumn is UK.
My favorite.
But I love autumn. It's my favorite because it's still warm, but it's not too hot. Yes. And it's kind of like you can still sit out at night time. Whereas spring it's kind of, it gets chilly really quickly. Like, it's not something yet. It's chilly really quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, I love that.
I know. And I'm an autumn.
Definitely. And my final question for you today is, what have you got for tea? So what have you got, not actually what you're drinking for tea. I have to do this every time when I have an American guest. So what have you got for you? Do you know what you got for your dinner tonight?
Oh, for dinner? Actually, I do, because today is my client day. So I actually have a 12-hour work day because I like to have my other days be super light. So today I think it's like Szechuan chicken that I just need to warm up.
Lovely. Sounds lovely. Yes. Well, enjoy. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Really Going to Eat That podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with your family and friends? And the best way to help me get out to a wider audience would be to leave me a review. So if you just got a couple of minutes, if you popped into iTunes and just scroll down to the bottom, click 5 stars, of course, and leave me a review, that really helps our ratings. And to make sure you get every episode in your inbox on a Wednesday as it's released, remember to click subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. Tune in again next week for the latest episode.